there's been some coaching turnover since the end of the college football season. And one of the biggest takeaways, one of the biggest developments was that Nick Saban has, departed as the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide. And with that, not only does it kind of make a seismic shift in the sport, because you could pencil in Alabama darn near as a college football playoff team every year in the 14 playoff, let alone 12-team playoff. And it will remain to be seen what Kalen DeBoer does or what the expectations are for Alabama under him. But more importantly, the influence of Nick Saban is, for the most part, now departed from the sport. Coaches can't now look towards Alabama to say, okay, where should I be moving this program? What should I be doing? Because he had been on the forefront of leading kind of revolutions. And if you needed a compass of like, okay, am I doing the right things? Is our program headed in the right direction? You could go to look at Alabama and say, okay, are we moving closer to them? There was a clear standard. It's basically the rabbit that the Greyhounds are trying to chase was Alabama and Nick Saban. And now that doesn't exist anymore. And footballscoop.com, great website. And I have said this time and time again, I'm not smart enough to come up with my own topics or, I read a lot. I'm a reader. And they had a topic earlier this week of like, who now is the most influential head coach in college football? And I think that's a fantastic question. And it's at risk of sounding like, it depends on what your definition of the word is. It depends on what your definition of influential is. Because you could argue that Dabo Swinney is the most established coach in college football, that with the amount of success he's had, the tenure that he's had, that Clemson and Dabo Swinney are the gold standard. I don't think anybody would argue that, though. Like, you could argue that, but I don't think there's a college football program in America that's like, we're going to emulate Clemson in 2024. You're not going to do it, because the idea of like, we're going to recruit at a really high level from high school. We're not going to use the transfer portal. We're going to pressure kids to not enter the transfer portal. And we're going to still operate as if it's 2014 instead of 2024. Nobody's going to emulate that. Nobody wants to be Clemson in 2024 anymore. And I think if you were to ask Dabo Swinney, he might tell you kind of the same thing of like, because the reaction, the response he's had to the criticisms, critiques, pressure that he's faced from the Clemson fan base shows you that he's not real comfortable with where they're at right now compared to the standard that he set. Another topic for another day. But you could argue that if there was a natural to replace Nick Saban as the like kind of forefront of college football, that this coach is the guy you should look up to, want to emulate your program after, that Dabo Swinney is that guy. But I don't think anybody would argue that. On the flip side of that, I think people would struggle to say that they wanted to emulate and be like Lane Kiffin. But I think Lane Kiffin might be the answer. I think Lane Kiffin is the coach, and for a industry that really kind of like prides itself on being kind of stoic, ambiguous, not all that interesting, for Lane Kiffin to be the guy that's like, yeah, this is the person that everybody should be trying to emulate. I don't think that coaches would tell you that either, but I think that's the answer. I think Lane Kiffin, the way that Ole Miss uses the transfer portal, the way Ole Miss plays offense, where essentially their philosophy is offensively, what play is going to give us the best opportunity to score a touchdown on this play? And that's what they run. Like, they're not, in the first quarter being like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do this play right now to set this up for the third quarter on a 3rd and 1, that if we get in the situation, we can do this. Ole Miss is just like, how are we going to score 6 points on this play? And then they take the best players they can find in the transfer portal. They stockpile as much talent as they can and go, I don't know. We're going to figure it the bleep out. Like if somebody's pissed off that we brought in a really good player, to one, deal with it, or two, get your own ass in the portal and go somewhere else. And I think, like, especially NIL wise, Ole Miss has done interesting things that, you know, some of the power brokers and like, well, hell, Nick Saban had shared his displeasure with the way Texas A&M had done NIL and the way Ole Miss had done NIL. So the power brokers in the SEC that don't expect Ole Miss to be in the upper echelon of the conference year after year are kind of envious of what Lane Kiffin has built at that program. So I think that's the answer. And I'm not sure who else is really in the running for that kind of title of who has the most influence, because that's what I think influence in my eyes is. We want to be like Ole Miss. We want to be like Lane Kiffin. We want to have cool uniforms. We want to be explosive offensively, have our fan base energized by the style of play we have, operate our program in a way that is kind of player forward, that players going to want to come here to play for us because we got cool uniforms, great NIL, going to give you an opportunity to compete in the best conference in America, all of those things. That's I think the influence that if you're looking for. Now, again, the idea that, you know, I don't know, Mike Loxley at Maryland is going to be like, the guy I look up to in this profession is Lane Kiffin. Like, no, I don't. I don't think. I think if you were asked coaches anonymously, that Lane Kiffin would be the answer. Because I don't know that you can just be truthful. That, and I think people still to this day have kind of 2009 Lane Kiffin in their mind. If you say Lane Kiffin, that there's been, to his credit, a lot of growth personally, professionally, that he's not nearly as brash and braggadocious and arrogant as he used to be. Now, he's still kind of fun and entertaining. He's still lighthearted, but it's not kind of the like Baker Mayfield crotch grab that you would maybe in your head envision Lane Kiffin, because that was your first impression and that was the personality he showcased for a really long time. There's been a lot of growth there where he's went from football wonderkind to established Power 5 leading head coach that I don't know that he gets credit for. But I think that's the answer, is Lane Kiffin is the most influential coach in college football right now. I would probably venture to say that in that, if Mike Leach were still alive, people would still be looking at him as an influential head coach. Now, there are some other aspects, like, for instance, I think Ryan Day's offense, like in the passing game at least, schools and coaches would tell you, like, hey, they're running kind of NFL stuff from a passing offense standpoint, that if we could do that, if we could recruit that level of quarterback, wide receiver, offensive line, that they'll look at, that you'll study that. But overall, as a program, I think Ole Miss, and we talked about it a few weeks ago in who kind of benefits the most from a 12-team playoff, the expansion from 4 to 12 teams. And I think Ole Miss is right there in that camp of, before Lane, it was going to be really difficult for Lane Kiffin to get a shot at the national championship at Ole Miss, because 12-0 or 11-1 or 12-1 and a SEC championship or whatever was going to be really difficult to accomplish at a school like Ole Miss. Now, can you go 10-2, 9-3 and make the playoff? Yes. And can somebody do your dirty work for you and beat the Georgias, the Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame, Ohio State, USCs of the world for you? Yeah. So it kind of evens the playing field for a school like Ole Miss. And when you couple with they don't really operate with quote unquote conventional wisdom in a lot of ways, that they just think about things differently. And when you're looking for an edge from a different program and you're going, okay, what are they doing? That's the influence that Lane Kiffin has on the sport. And I think he's the answer to that question. That'll do it for today's episode of the Daily Huddle. Appreciate you making us a part of your day, however it is, wherever it is you're doing so. You're watching on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're getting all the great college football content on Saturday Glory. If you are listening on the podcast feed, drop a 5-star review. It goes a long way in helping out the channel. I'll see you tomorrow here on the Daily Huddle with Saturday Glory.